I was listening to some hockey pundits discuss the effectiveness of a coach last week. And if you're not a hockey fan, don't worry. This isn't about hockey. This is about coaching. And it was interesting. They were discussing Craig Berube and his influence, his efficacy in working with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And for those of you that don't know, he's a new coach this year. He played in the NHL for quite a significant amount of time. He was wasn't quite an enforcer, but he was a tough guy kind of player, straight ahead, hard hitting, no fuss. And that was his playing style. And no surprise, perhaps that's his coaching style. Toronto has turned things around this year. They are playing not necessarily consistently, but they're playing better. And they're playing to a style that is indicative of Craig Berube's style, which is heavy and hard and straight ahead, right? Doesn't like the fancy stuff, likes very simple hockey. And when you've got a team full of superstars who love fancy hockey, that's not an easy task. You've got to change the thinking, or as he calls it, the identity. And he's in the midst of doing that. What I found interesting about the interview was when asked, why is Berube being so effective? One of the guys speaking, who was an NHL veteran, said that Berube has a scare the hell out of the players superpower. And I'm not sure if superpower was the term, but you get my point. He has an innate ability to intimidate, right? And I mean, you just look at him. His resting face is I'm going to knock your head off. But when you hear him speak, he's not that kind of guy at all. At least in the interviews, he's very calm, very centered. Regardless of whether or not they win or lose, he is the same guy, right? He's not pissed off when they lose. He's not super excited when they win. He is the same coach. Now, what was interesting about that acknowledgement that he has the scare the crap out of the players superpower was that the acknowledgement that it has a shelf life and that at some point it will get tired. He will lose the room, as they say, right? His voice, his stick, in the metaphor of stick and carrot motivation, will at some point become less intimidating, if that is in fact true, if that's how he's coaching. And I would say to a certain degree, it is. I mean, certainly for a lot of these guys, they've come from a coach who, rarely held players accountable or only held players accountable who weren't the superstars. Berube doesn't care. Everybody gets the same deal, right? If you're the top paid player on the team, you get the same coach, regardless of whether or not you're there and you're in the fourth line and you're barely hanging on to your position. You get the same coach, which I think in itself is admirable, right? He gets the respect of the players. So here's the challenge, though, right? This is going to be the interesting part, and this is one of the reasons. Move your paw. This is why I find hockey so fascinating, in that it's basically, like you've hired an institution to do a study on motivation, and it's playing out in living color in front of you. So here we have a coaching change, pretty similar player makeup. They've made some significant changes for sure, but you bring in a new coach and you get a different result. So what is causing that? And I would argue it's certainly his accountability piece and the fact that he is intimidating as hell. But it will be interesting to see if the narrative shifts to a more positive motivating one, where he invites players to be intrinsically motivated. Now, that isn't always the case with these kinds of coaches. They tend to have a 2, 3, 4 year shelf life where they come in, they're super effective, and they get the job done, and then it gets tiring. Berube's done it before. He went to St. Louis, won a Stanley Cup. And so Toronto, recognizing they are in a 2-3 year window where they will have the skill, the players, to win a Stanley Cup, they've brought in this guy, this taskmaster, who holds people accountable. And it's just going to be fascinating to watch it play out. What I want to point out is the notion that although stick and carrot works, and we will, and as I've said before, we'd never argue that it doesn't. We would just invite you to consider that it's a it's a tool that you don't want to rely on all the time, because it does have a shelf life, right? When it's extrinsic motivation, and especially when we're using fear, super powerful, right? I mean, we're hardwired to be aversive to threat with our negativity bias. And so when a coach sort of, what's the term, plays on that natural tendency, it can be an effective tool. But like I said, it can lose its efficacy. And it's going to be really fascinating to watch Berube navigate that over the long term. So anyway, stay tuned. And I'm certainly going to watch. And I mean, obviously as a Leafs fan, but it's just, it'll be really cool to see how this plays out. So, okay. Morning before another big blower tonight. We've got 90, 100K winds coming. And certainly won't be in the forest during that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we have power in a few hours. So take care of yourselves, share the love as always, and we'll see you again next week. Okay, see you everybody. Bye-bye.